And welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto Lozano Lopez, who made it all happen. He passed away in 2011, but he's always honored and venerated here. And my good friend Carlos and Ernest, they really do a great job on the station. They do so much for this community. They're unsung heroes. And speaking of an unsung hero, we have somebody that's part of our KTMB family, not only there, but also in the community. John Marez, former city councilman, and now your county commissioner. Welcome, John. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you on. I know our audience doesn't know, but some may, that I've interviewed you before, but you've interviewed me and a lot of other people. And before we get to that, I think we should introduce you to the public. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your education, training.
Sure. Well, thanks for this opportunity. First of all, I always love watching your show and the great interviews that you do. And so, to be here today, just to be able to share a little bit about myself, to remind the community about some of the work that I've done and we as a community have done together. I was born and raised here in Corpus Christi. Grew up and attended elementary at Sam Houston Elementary, just down the street from Mom and Dad's house. They still live there after all these years of 45 plus years in the same home. I attended Baker Middle School, Ray High School, Del Mar College, graduated from there, and then also from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, where I earned a bachelor's in political science and a master's in public administration. During all that time, I was involved in a lot of different community boards and commissions and committees. Back in 1991, I first ran for city council when I was 18. Didn't win, came in second place out of 3 candidates. But after that, that's when I got involved in the community with different groups and organizations, with LULAC and many other groups. And then I started a talk show called South Texas Politics back in 1993 because I ran in 91. I learned a lot about the political process. I knew I wanted to stay in the process, but I didn't want to run for office again. So 2 years later, the city council elections were coming up, and I said, hey, I want to start a show on public access. Back then, public access was really big, was really the only one of the only venues out there that people could get involved with little or no cost to be able to reach the public through talk show. And so it was the height of it really back in the 90s. And so I started the show and started doing it every Friday live, taking phone calls, and started just interviewing members of the community and candidates and elected officials, and it been doing it ever since. We've taken some breaks over the years lately, just because of life and family commitments and other commitments, work commitments. But we continue to do that. I've brought on 2 co-hosts that have been there with me for 10, 15 years at least, Renee Saenz and Art Granado. And so we've been doing it. We've been at KTMV since 2002. And so this has been a long time. And so we love getting out there during election time, and that's when people are really kind of paying attention to the candidate interviews. And so that's been a part of who I am. I'm married, been married for almost 20 years. In March will be 20 years to my wife Gina. She is a dental hygienist here in the community, and I have 2 kids. My daughter is 16 at Ray High School. She's a sophomore there, and my son is 12. He attends Hamlin Middle School. So we keep real busy with them as well, aside from doing politics and everything else. But I love my community. I love what we've been able to do over the years, and just to be able a representative and a voice for the community is something I've always had a passion for, and I've just been blessed to be here as county commissioner now these 3 years.
Well, and we want to get into that. Politics. First off, I wanted to ask you. You've been in it since you finished high school.
Yeah.
Have you seen the political landscape change here in South Texas since going 25 years back plus? Have you seen things change?
I have. I remember, we were doing our talk show back then. I think it was either at KTMV or maybe we had just gone over to Lopez Broadcasting at KTMV. But it was around that time, Ruben Bonilla, our former port chairman, His wife, to her credit, is
Rosie.
Rosie, she right, Dr. Rosie, right? So she's very well qualified and very involved in the community, and she ran for at large for school board years ago, and she didn't win. Very shocking, very surprising because of the commitment the community they've had in the community as a family,
Yes.
the well-known name of the family, but the dynamics were very different in voting back then. I was one of the first Hispanics elected to the CCISD school board that she ran for, where she came in fourth or fifth place. I was able to be the top vote getter when I ran. I think that shows that the dynamics have changed in our community. The outlook has changed in wanting a community that's represented by the diversity that we are. And so I think that has changed a lot here locally, is that we're seeing people who have crossover appeal. Before, it used to be very much a slate. Right back in the 80s, I remember even as a young child paying attention to the slates on the city council, right? And you had your most of the slate were Anglo American citizens, and then you had maybe one or two African American, and then one or two Hispanic or Mexican American citizens on that slate to make up the group, right, of 8 or 9 members running for council, and then the mayor. That has changed. We don't see slates here in Corpus Christi anymore. So I think that's allowed voters to be able to cross over and pick the candidates who they really are seeing, who are being involved, and who can make a difference. But that was a key to me because I felt so much that Rosie, had such a great opportunity to win. And really, I felt, based on her qualifications, deserved to be there. And just because of the way the votes turned out, I mean, I remember specifically her race, she had campaign signs that were the color of every school. So if you went into the Miller area, you had the high school colors for Miller. If you went into the Ray or the King or the Carroll, the Moody area, we didn't have veterans back then, she had her campaign signs based on those colors. I mean, you never seen that in any other CCISD race since. But it was that kind of detail that they paid attention to in the campaign, and the work that they did. You just knew that that she and the family would be a part of the CCISD community as an elected board member on the trustees, and she didn't get it. Not because she couldn't, but I think the dynamics were different. People's mindsets of voting were different. That has changed. I've seen that over the years as I've run and been involved in politics and run for office. And of course, I appreciate it because I benefit from that. I still hear stories from my grandfather, my dad's dad, who is still alive. He's 91 years old, and you hear from everyone, right, from all walks of life. Mexican American young man, 18, 19 years old, coming home to visit Mathis, Texas, at the time where they lived, and in his Air Force uniform, and not being able to go into certain establishments, right. And not being able to have the access that we take for granted, I think, many of the younger generations as we get further away from that. All of that has changed. I know that there's still a lot out there that we need to change as a community and as a country, but I definitely see how I've benefited from those in the area who are more accepting of the diversity that we deserve.
Well, you bring out a good point. I had the same experience growing up, hearing the stories. In fact, 5 years after the Civil Rights Act, there was still that, like in Alice, Texas, where they were just taking down the signs, no Mexicans, no blacks, no dogs in a restaurant. I had the opportunity to attend like a nationwide law training, and there were African Americans there, and they had no clue that Mexican Americans had the same or similar experience they had, as far as not the Great Passage and slavery,
Sure.
but I think that we are akin to them, feeling that prejudice, extreme prejudice, and also marginalization, not having a voice. And it harkens back to, not to go too far in history, but the Guadalupe Hidalgo thing, and then everybody that took away the lands of people, and so I can really relate to what you're saying. that then we start off with that dynamic in the early 90s. It was still a generation. You were starting the new generation, and there was, 25, 30 years ago, there were still a lot of prejudices and that notion that the Anglo-Saxon whites could dominate and run everything. I remember my history with Hayden Head, the name the port after. He got Salomon involved, right? Yeah. Truth be told, take back the curtain, ladies and gentlemen. And so politics is it is a dirty business. Yeah. And, everything I've known from you and the inside and everything, you've always played it pretty positive. I've never seen anything negative in your campaign. So how do you deal with that when you have opponents come at you, in a negative fashion, in even constituents, and, they stack when you're making the rounds, they stack them with people on their side. They get desperate and they throw punches at you. How do you deal with that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe just in my nature, I just kind of let it roll off my back. And I guess you can talk to somebody, with a smile and still get your point across. He may not agree or may not be happy with what or how they're saying things. I always just try to give people respect, and I think in the long run that even if their intentions are not true, it's going to be difficult for them to come back and respond to someone who's going to be kind and courteous to them. Politics is dirty, like you said. We've been part of, information that's wrong, misinformation, lies, whatever you want to call them, throughout the years, and still hear interesting anecdotes about reasonings for making certain votes or just, who am I trying to help? And like I tell everyone, look, when I first ran for city council when I was 18, we made homemade signs. We made them at home, my mom and I and my dad, and so we made them on our own. We put them up, and we didn't have many. We bought a stack of maybe 50 or 100 campaign paper signs that weren't good to leave out in the rain. You had to only put them out in good weather, and we put those up on election day. But the campaign changed for us a little bit when I first ran and got elected in 2005.
I remember.
But I started off with $300 of my own pocket to run. No one came and asked me to run. There was no group or the establishment, however you want to call it, that came knocking at my door looking for me to run against an incumbent councilman. I just said, what, I feel I can do better. I feel that my perspective and the vote and the issues that I'm supporting are what people are looking for. And sure enough, they responded to it. We worked hard. We started picking up a lot of endorsements from police and the firefighters, from all the labor unions, and from other groups. And we won. We won what people called a surprise. And I remember one of the Caller Time reporters back then asked me, are you surprised you won? And I wasn't trying to be facetious. I just said, no, I knew we were going to win because we worked so hard. We never took anything for granted,
right? And
we felt so confident in the message that we got across to people that that's what they wanted, and not only wanted but knew that we could deliver. And so that's what I've been trying to do throughout the years, is deliver a voice that is not afraid to stand up and say, this is right or this is wrong. I don't want to say all my good work, if I ever had to classify anything good, is done, but it's usually an executive session when there's very sensitive issues that come up with personnel or with a big project that the company can't be revealed yet because they're asking us not to because it could jeopardize other business dealings or whatever. But when we go in there, it's where I'm really able to express what I feel and be able to get those on the council, on the board, on the court, aligned with me. Not because I make the best argument, but because I'm really able and willing to take a stand that, I want to say, costs me the position I'm in, but I'm not afraid. If I were not to ever be elected again, and it's because I stood up for the reasons I believe in and for what I felt is right, I have no problem with that at all. And that's how I've kind of governed, and I hope that people see that. I hope people have realized it. I think they have, because we got elected 4 times on the city council. We had some tough races. We had candidates who were backed by a lot of money, backed by the establishment.
Unlimited. And then you
Unlimited
don't
money.
have to talk about your party.
That's right. And then there's a nonpartisan then. And then on the school board, I was the top vote getter out of 11 candidates running for an at-large position. Once again, but those that laid the ground for us, that's why I was able to do that. And then on Commissioner's Court when I ran and won the nomination out of 6 candidates. And that, I think people realize that, we're doing it for the right reasons. We're not attached to anybody, to any big dealings. There's still big people and big names in this community I don't know just because I don't run in those circles. But the circles I do run in are the taquerias and just the mom and pop restaurants and stores. And we have such a big family here that they're so involved in the community just through work or different groups that they're involved in that a lot of people get to know who we are. And so that all helps. That all just connects them to us to know that we're doing it for the right reason. So I love what I do. I love Commissioner's Court. I love that I'm finally able to do a full-time job. When I was on city council, it was full-time, but I had a full-time job to do as well, 40 hours a week plus 30 to 40 hours a week of city council stuff, if not more. Being able to do commissioner's work every day, Monday through Friday, or even the weekends and evenings, because, there's stuff on social media I'm replying to, or ideas that come up, or research I'm doing that it doesn't meet the normal 8 to 5 job, but that's my job. I love that part of it. And that's really the exciting part of being commissioner, is being that hands-on and being able to work with staff. Because I've been on city council and school board where, not that they're maybe trying to do something against your will or what you've directed, but staff can easily sit back and wait until you come up and show up to the next council meeting the week later or the next school board meeting the following month. But on Commissioner's Court, county staff knows, hey, we're there every day, or I'm there at least every day, to make sure that we're getting our initiatives pushed, our projects pushed, anything that we have that we're pushing forward. There's no way they can sit on their hands and just delay. So I love, because it's very responsive to what I'm looking for, which is really what the community is asking for. They'll call me, they'll email me, run across me, and then we'll get on it. We had a big issue that came up yesterday. We had a deputy constable who sent me some pictures of a county road that was torn up, literally torn up by some tractor equipment out in the rural part of the county near Driscoll, the city of Driscoll. And immediately I sent the email with the pictures and forwarded them to the county judge and our sheriff and public works director and a few others. And the judge and the sheriff, they immediately replied and said, what do we need to do? How can we find these people? Maybe it was unintentional, but somebody has to be accountable for it, because we can't continue to pay for this, because it's an ongoing problem actually that we have out in the rural part of the county. And so the sheriff said, I'm going to investigate this and find out. And I just said, look, we need to make them aware of what's going on and see, can we recoup this cost, because it's not fair for the taxpayers to pay for a road that was already fixed but got damaged by someone. That was an immediate need that we got, a concern that was brought to my office, and I got on it. So it's stuff like that I just love the response rate I'm able to give to the community. Whereas before I would still reply, but it's like in the middle of a work break, in the middle of my 40-hour week or so at my old job. So the way the county commissioner's court is set up is ideal for what I'm looking for and how to serve the community. And so, like I said, it gives direct access. It gives a great response to them, and we show results. We get a lot of results. And when we can't, the community, a lot of times they understand. We explain to them there's state laws or statutes that handcuff us, don't allow us to do that. Some may huff and grumble a little bit about it, but most will understand that we're doing everything we can, and if we can, we'll fix it, whatever that issue is. But if we can't, there's a reason for it. But we'll try to change the law, or we'll try to find another way to help them out. And so that's on a constant basis. That's like on a daily basis, really.
Well, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of truth in you telling your story and bringing out and conveying that to the voter. And contrary to popular belief, many politicians and lawyers think, and even judges think that the voter or the constituent or the client or the jury is not that intelligent, when in fact they're very intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
They can see through lies. and they can see through somebody not being genuine. So I think what you convey is your story in a very truthful, sincere manner. So I think that's, in my estimation, why you were the top vote getter back in the day out of 11. I mean, it's a free-for-all out there. And so, before we take our break, and we'll get into the technicalities and your day-to-day operations, but, as far as the voter, what would you like to tell them about why you do what you do?
I do it because I feel I have a servant's heart. I love serving the community. I have. I want to say it's a sacrifice to put everything else you have in life, family and every other priority, have to put it aside to go and work after hours, long hours, evenings, weekends, holidays, through illnesses and other things that come up, and work on their behalf. I do it because I love it. I wouldn't be seeking a re-election if I didn't, but there is a price, and we're aware of it, and my family has learned to live with it over the years. But it's something that I love being committed to. I love being a voice for people when they feel they don't have one, or when they feel that it's just going to be the same old thing. Oh, we've tried before and no one listens. Well, I haven't heard it yet. Let me try something for you. And so that's kind of my mission. That's kind of my goal every day. And anytime I come across any constituent, whether they live in Precinct 3 or not, I'm going to be there to help them out, because obviously the entire county is our responsibility. Hurricane Harvey hitting Port A, that's not my precinct, that Commissioner Chesney's precinct, but it's still Nueces County. We still have to find resolution to help those people, find ideas of how to get them back to a normal life, and how to restore a lot of the buildings that we had damaged out there that are our buildings, county buildings, taxpayer-paid buildings, and just the private sector who's trying to rebuild that vibrant economy and tourist destination out there. So every part of this county matters to us and matters to me. And so I'm a listener, I think, a lot of times. I feel I shouldn't say talk much, but I rather listen than talk, because I want to hear the person's story. I want to hear their reasons why they're seeking resolution to a certain issue, or just who they are. Tells me a lot about what their true motivation is. Maybe supporting a vote, or opposed or supporting a vote. That tells me who they are, and helps me a lot of times decide where should I stand on a vote. Because a lot of times you have your gut reaction, right? You kind of know where you're going to lean, but then after you hear your community, then you may have to pause back and say, you know what, maybe the way I was leaning was not the right vote. And then based on what you hear, weigh it all out, and then decide to vote for something or against it. So it's helpful, I think, to be a leader. We sometimes allow leaders in the business world and in government talk too much and not listen enough. But like I said, I think I'm more of a listener. So I hope that helps in the delivery that I give to the constituents of my precinct.
Absolutely. I think wiser man than me said we listen to understand, not to respond.
That's right.
So I think that that's an admirable quality, listening to that. When we come back, you're with John Marez, Nueces County Commissioner, and we're going to get into the heart of the matter of his day-to-day operations, what he's doing for the county, and how you can get involved as well as a constituent and as a community leader when we come back. And we're back after a brief break, and you're watching KTMV here in Corpus Christi, Spectrum, and you can also catch us on Facebook and also on other social media such as Twitter, and I'll be loading it up to LinkedIn. So we're back with Nueces County Commissioner, also formerly City Councilman, John Marez, and welcome back, John.
Thanks, Joe.
On the break, we were saying that you're a great listener. I envy that quality in you. But I think it's a good thing to get your story out and your truth. And, just to recap earlier in the part of the show, we talked about how politics has changed. And I just want to touch on that a little bit. Have you seen any going back to that pre-90 era where it was very dominated? Are you seeing a sentiment out there in the community that's reflective of going to the right in extremes, or do you see some of that here in South Texas, even with our diversity?
I think we do. I mean, you look at social media, and I think that changes people. A lot of times they feel they're freer to be able to share who they are, and so you see a lot of underlying issues that were always there that we maybe thought had gone away, but they're still there. Prejudices, stereotyping that's out there. So I think there's still a lot of that. I mean, and you may be able to find it on both sides, both extremes. I think though that when we try to find our common areas and we try to find how we can work together, that will go a lot longer than if we try to collectively play a partisan card, whether it's from the left or the right. I mean, it's just people I think want solutions, and we on the Democratic side can always point to the right and say, well, they are not playing by the rules, or this is what they're wrong about, and then those on the right could say that about Democrats. But it's what's bringing us together. Where have we found our greatest success as a country? And it's when we've had a focus, a goal. You can't say that people are blindly supporting Donald Trump because he hasn't provided anything but rhetoric. He's provided results for them that they feel are results, whether it's immigration or tax cuts. Now, we can have an argument all day whether that's the right policy or not. But when you label people, then that automatically just turns the argument into your perspective rather than what's reality. And the reality is whether those issues are good for our country or not. Same thing on the left. We hear concerns about the economy or immigration or gun rights and automatically labeled as anti-constitutional. Well, no, it's because there's tragic events that are happening throughout our country and in our own neighborhoods, in our own community, and we're trying to find a solution to them. It's not about we're trying to subvert what the Constitution or what the forefathers wanted, but it's about we're so desperate to find safety and security for us that we're talking about it. We're looking at what those issues are, and so it's a hard dichotomy to break. But I think we need to start recognizing that both sides are bringing up points that we can discuss, but when we turn them personal and turn them ugly, that we're not going to get anywhere. And then ever since, especially his passing, Senator John McCain, his one of his greatest moments, obviously being a POW and serving our country in the way he did, but coming back as a senator, is that once he died, people remembered his famous quote that he brought up in 2008 during the presidential campaign against Barack Obama. And a lady at a town hall meeting said, well, he's not American and he's this and he's that. And he's like, wait a minute, right there. Stop right there. He's a good, honorable man. And we need more people to be able to say that from the left to the right and the right to the left. We need more officials, elected officials, and just members in our community to say that, what, that's a good person. Don't use that rhetoric on us or on me. And so for me, that's kind of what binds me as an elected official, knowing that from time to time we're going to be asked about issues that are passionate, issues that are big. We dealt with an issue a couple of years ago about what to do with people with immigration status is questioned, but comes across Nueces County Sheriff's Department deputies for arrest. Are they going to be brought into the jails, or can they be released? There's been a lot of people who've been brought up. I think it was called a 287G, and this was working through ICE that the Sheriff's Department had a couple of deputies trained through them. When they come across people whose status is questioned, would put them in detainers with ICE to be able to get picked up. So someone that, say, had a minor traffic infraction could be arrested and then just deported automatically, with the family staying, the rest of the family staying here, but that person being sent away. Was there or is there another way out of it? Only a handful of communities in Texas have adopted that type of policy. Commissioner's Court didn't have any say over it because it was not our purview, because it came from the sheriff. But the previous sheriff is the one that adopted that policy. And so when you look at dehumanizing people, when you look at labeling people, we've seen history that shows that can lead to dangerous repercussions, right? Yeah, you've seen that in so many other times. People want to point to Hitler from the left and the right, saying he's a bad guy, and the other guy is that person. But if you look at what was said to dehumanize Jewish people, dehumanize gypsies or others or homosexuals, that led to atrocities that can still happen and are happening in other parts of the world today. So to me, it's all about looking at how can we have the courage to stand up on issues. And if somebody on the right is being unfairly labeled, that I have the courage to stand up and defend them, but that I would also hope that someone that's on the left side would be vehemently defended by a person on the right to say that label is not correct. If we can get back to that, I think our country would be on the right track. But the way we're going right now, we're just allowing ourselves to devolve, and really it becomes, I think, a national security issue, because then other countries will know that we're just at the brink of this just violent political posturing, and they don't have to worry about destroying us because we're doing it from within. Right. China doesn't have to worry about that. Russia doesn't have to worry about that because we're doing it from within. So we got to be careful about that as a country.
If we're reaching out to foreign leaders to help us sway elections, as some leaders are doing that in our own country, that's arguably a very sanctionable offense.
Yeah, it is.
I'm also, the dialogue and discourse is one way. People are tweeting, not just our president, but both sides, tweeting their message but not listening to the other side. And I think the theme in this interview is about listening and really understanding what somebody else is saying. By the same token, I think both sides are to blame, and there's been blame on both sides. Arguably, as you said, there's a nationalist sort of sentiment that finally we have our country strong, the economy. I hear that over and over again. I was out west, and I heard that again and again, that our leader may have eccentricities, but he's effective.
Right.
And so I hear that common theme before, where they finally have a voice, and they felt they didn't have a voice for near a decade. Right. So I think what they're saying is valid, and I think that in their circumstance, but I agree with you that if we go back to dehumanizing certain racial groups or religions, that we could devolve into something very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
Boy, we're getting really deep here.
Yeah, we are.
But I want to educate the public on what you do. All politics is local, as Tip O'Neill said.
Oh, sure.
Old Speaker of the House,
Sure.
God rest his soul. But he was right.
Yes.
So tell me about a typical day. We've got a few minutes left, but it's okay. We can go over a little bit. But tell me about what you do in a typical day, so people know what a commissioner does.
Sure. Well, like I explained to people, is a lot of times, we deal with phone calls, walk-ins, emails of people who live in the precinct or in the county who have concerns about roads or facilities or different services that we offer: veteran services, social services, community services, parks. Like I said, public works, roads are a big part of what we do. And of course, we are part of a bigger team with other elected officials and departments that include, carrying out administration of justice, right, through law enforcement, through the jails, through district attorney, county attorney offices, through our county court at law, or county court at laws, and through our district courts. All of those are a part of the county. The district county clerk, the tax assessor collector, all of those, JPs, constables, they're all part of the county. and they all are responsible for their own budgets, but we ultimately vote on budgets. So we're constantly monitoring the spending of not only our own offices and departments, but also everyone else's, to make sure that we're not going to break the bank and break the commitment that we made on this year's budget. We deal with roads that have been neglected for years, that we've come up with trying to find funding for them. We try to find those in the community that are in need of services because they cannot afford a burial for a family member. That comes to the county. Medical needs that come up from members in the community that cannot afford it, that comes from the county. So all of these needs that we have in the community are things that we monitor. We have meetings, we have outreach, we go to any kind of organization you have in the community, talk about what we're doing. We have chambers of commerce in all the different cities and communities that we represent. We look at business interest and labor interest. We just approved this year a labor contract agreement with our Nueces County Sheriff's Officers Association. That was a big part of conversation earlier this year. So all those parts are just coming in day out, just meetings, running around, putting a lot of miles in. Start off the day at the courthouse, run to Robstown, Agua Dulce, Banquete, Driscoll, or run somewhere here back into town, because my precinct's a very vast precinct. It's
Sprawling.
It is. It's part of the Momentum campus at A&M Corpus Christi, and goes through down the Alameda Ocean Drive corridor, all the way towards Del Mar College West Campus, the International Airport, and then Robstown, Banquete, Agua Dulce, and Driscoll. And so it's a big cross-section of interest and homes and individuals that we represent. And so it takes me everywhere. But I love it because I like being a hands-on person. Like I said previously, being able to be on staff to make sure they're getting the results done is not only rewarding, but it's important, because then we give the results to the community. They see how their tax dollars are being spent. And then right now also, we're working on a capital improvement plan that hasn't been done probably in decades here in Nueces County. We got tens of millions of dollars in projects that have been delayed until this year, to fix. That includes the elevators, which if you spend any time at the courthouse, you know those are failing from time to time.
No comment.
There you go, right?
Rub some dirt on it. Get over it, right? They tell you. But, one elevator on 8 in the morning.
It is
and
horrible.
Somebody's afraid to get a warrant, or a juror can't
sure.
get up there. I mean, we're delayed
is.
15, 20 minutes.
So we're dealing with that constantly. We have a list of projects that we have tentatively approved to look at. And so May of 2020, we will start the reconstruction of brand new elevators for the courthouse for floors 1 through 10, so that we can have, on jury duty days, no long lines. People will just be able to get into one of the 4 elevators and get it to any of the floors they need to and get back out.
It's difficult for prospective jurors, for people that want to pay a bill or a fine or go visit probation, or, I've heard horror stories, plus
Sure.
the metal detector. And so I think that when we look at jurors, jury pool, for instance, which everybody can identify with, I think that it's paramount that be addressed, and I'm glad that you all are doing that.
So these elevators, we have to try to get them, fixed brand new, and that's going to happen finally. We have the money allocated for it. We voted for a $40 million bond to fix that. And a lot of ADA needs that we have in the county courthouse and throughout the different county buildings in Nueces County.
Can you tell me, in the few minutes we have left, your worst and best story of constituents that you had to deal with?
So earlier this week, we were taking a tour in one of the areas outside of the city of Robstown. So it was an unincorporated area. A gentleman saw us driving through the neighborhood in a county vehicle, came up, didn't know I was in the vehicle, and just wanted to share his frustration that he had with a county employee. The employee had come to his house and told him that he needed to fix his yard and keep it clean and straightened up.
Environmental court.
Environmental issues, right? You're very familiar with that. And so the man proceeded just to get upset and shared a lot of expletives, a lot of words. Luckily, it was me and another gentleman, so we weren't very easily offended, and there was no women or young kids around. So we let him vent. I let him vent. He didn't know who I was at the time, and we just listened to him. And then I gave him my card and introduced myself and told him, please call my office at any time. He was obviously frustrated that he felt he was being singled out. There was a lot of other properties around him that he felt were not being enforced, and rightfully so. There was a lot of overgrown, not just simple mismaintenance, but years and years of decay. So I heard him out and let him share
It's
his
a big
his
issue.
concerns.
Yeah.
It is very big, and it's very
Veterans,
passionate. I mean,
yeah.
there's people that can't. These are properties don't even have homes on them. They're just vacant lots, right? So it may be a different situation than somebody that can't
Sure.
care for it themselves. So it's not that. It was just the vacant lot himself that he had issues with. But he was so animated, so upset. And once I heard him out, once we spoke with him, gave him my card, told him to call us on any issue he felt that we needed to correct, he appreciated it, he understood, and it really kind of de-escalated the situation, and immediately had our staff get working on it. And so we're going to have some resolution to those needs out there. And so that was probably one of the worst, in that he was pretty upset in using some language. But the best would be also that same situation. You know, I think immediately began to trust the county, trust
There you
what we're
go.
doing. You know, because his first thing was, y'all are taking our money, but we're not getting any results. But once we told him, we're here to listen and here to help out, I think he realized, okay, that money that I'm putting in my tax dollars, I am going to see some corrections out here. And so I hope within the next week or two we will get him some help with his neighbors or the neighborhood in general. So that was one of the challenges that was difficult, but it was also I felt good about it afterwards, because I feel we helped him out and are going to help him out.
And a more I wouldn't say positive experience, but something that really touched you as a commissioner, and that it has affected you in a way that is really reinforces what you do. Is there a really good outcome off the bat that you had, or you were able to help? Obviously, if somebody doesn't need help, they're not going to call you.
Sure.
So everything's going to be, not to that extreme with that poor gentleman with environmental court, and I don't want to be critical of environment. I think the environmental court and the code enforcement do a great job.
Oh, yeah.
And I think CCPD has taken over that, and I'm glad about it too.
Yeah.
But what recently has happened that you say, you know what, this is why I'm here?
Well, we have such a great response rate from our county employees. When we have a concern that comes up, they're immediately on it to work on it. We needed some work done on County Road 67, which is Petronila Road, just outside of the city of Robstown. It was previously annexed by the city, and they had de-annexed that road by the city of Robstown, de-annexed it. So they gave it back to us. It was in pretty bad condition. The constituents were calling and complaining about it, and it's near my office, so I drive through there very often. Told our new public works director about it, and he was able to get a new surface out there. It was not technically a brand new road, it was reused material from that same road, but they fixed it in such a way that it was a huge improvement, and that road will last years rather than driving through every pothole you can get through now. So I felt really good about that, and there's issue after issue that we have help people out with code enforcement issues, or roads, or street signs, and issues or questions with taxes. We've helped them connect with the tax office so they can get their questions answered. But one of the things that motivates me is we have a maintenance staff that goes and maintains all the buildings, including my office in Robstown. And so I was there one day, and one of the maintenance men who I know and get to see pretty often came in, and he was working and cleaning the restroom, which I have one right in front of my desk area. And so I looked over, and he had the door open. He was cleaning on his hands and knees, cleaning and scrubbing and keeping that room up to par. And he did it with pride. He did it because that's his job. This is what he's asked for. Never once complained about it. And I thought, that's why I'm here. It's people like that who are just doing their job. They want to commit their careers to Nueces County. They deserve a good living, a good paying wage. and they just deserve respect and dignity in the jobs they're given, not to be harassed by political bosses that are just trying to play politics with every form of this government, but who are going to let them do what they need to do. And he was in there just doing that, and I just quietly watched, and it just touched me so much that he was doing that to keep my office clean. And like I said, he did it with no questions, no response of I'm not going to do this. And he's been doing it for years, and so he hopes to retire soon, and I hope that he has a great retirement with the county. And so stuff like that I see, that are stories that I hear from people about the work that the county employees have done, that just really makes me proud to be part of that team and know that we can't get anything done without people like that. And so that was a great day for me, even though I had nothing to do with it. But to be able to see that,
Sure.
it's such a humbling experience, and it makes you realize that, when we vote on budgets and budget increases, when we ask people to pay more in taxes, it's because we're asking for more pay for them, for those workers who are working on their hands and knees, not for us. Every year we've ever had the chance for a pay raise, we have said no. And I still feel that way, and will continue to feel that way, because it's the ones on the ground floor who are working that deserve a better way of life and better pay than the Commissioner's Court or anyone else in administration like that.
Well, very well said, and the time has just flown by. I am honored to have you on, and I want to thank you for what you have done in your show and bringing out people's stories for more than 25 years. I hope that we're talking about archiving some of this and the South Texas experience, whether you're brown, blue, yellow, green, your or whatever ethnic or race you're with, that we want to try to memorialize our history, and you've got a rich history of bringing people on. So I'm delighted to hear about you're on Facebook also. If people want to see South Texas politics, they just merely friend or like that page.
Yeah, and they can watch us. We're on most Fridays. We won't be on this Friday, but we'll be on next week. And we're on most Fridays on Facebook from 5:30 to 6:30, doing a lot of what you do, just interviewing community members, elected officials, candidates. A lot of candidates are getting ready to run soon for office and declaring, and we'll be doing that in the next month. So a lot of interest in our community, and so we love providing that service like you do.
Well, and I want to thank you for your service as County Commissioner, John Marez, Nueces County, and the best way for them to get a hold of you, your constituents.
They can call me at my office there in Robstown. It's 361-387-1151. And they can also reach me at the courthouse as well. I'm there a lot of times, or my staff is there, but we'll be able to touch base with them and respond to those emails, phone calls, text, whatever it is that they have given us. We'll respond by a phone call from someone on my staff or myself personally, and we'll work to getting whatever they need resolved.
Okay, well, Nueces County and our very own KTMB's John Marez, thank you for being such a great leader all these years and dedicating yourself and rededicating yourself. And I appreciate you telling us your story.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catch you all next week.